Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard from Hawaii.
Yes.
Did I get that right?
You're so good, Alex.
We appreciate you being here. Welcome back to The Issue Is.
It's always good to see you.
Of course, the Democratic candidate for president, and also in your role as Congress member, somebody who will vote potentially on articles of impeachment. The big story of this week, we finally have these impeachment hearings publicly. From the evidence that you've seen so far, are you ready to vote to impeach?
No. I think that the public hearings, the information that is being gathered, the testimony that's being delivered before Congress is important, both for members of Congress to be able to have access to, which will really be the first time, you know, for those of us who don't sit on those subject matter committees, to be able to get that information, and really for the American people to make their own assessment of what occurred and what should happen next.
I mean, do you think that the president committed high crimes and misdemeanors?
Look, I think that we've got to see this process work itself through. You know, there's a reason why I've supported having an inquiry. I have some concerns given some of the information that was released after the whistleblower complaint came out and so on. Transparency, focus, and a nonpartisan approach to gathering the facts is essential for us, the American people, to get to the truth.
Another big story this week is what's happening between you and Hillary Clinton, right? So Hillary Clinton did this podcast where she suggested, without saying your name, that you were potentially an agent of Russia and that Russia was prepping you to be a third-party run. A lawyer has put out a letter to her saying that that's defamatory. Why is it defamatory?
I mean, give me a break. I am a patriot. I'm a soldier serving in the United States Army National Guard. I've served now for over 16 years. I've deployed twice to the Middle East. I serve as a member of Congress now for 7 years on the Foreign Affairs Committee, the Armed Services Committee, the Homeland Security Committees, participating in high-level intelligence briefings, holding oversight hearings, questioning the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, working with high-level military leaders. I think really the issue here is that this is not just a personal spat between two people. What this is a very serious difference in our foreign policy. Hillary Clinton and her legacy of foreign policy has been a very interventionist one of promoting and championing regime change wars in different parts of the world. Wars that have taken the lives of thousands of my brothers and sisters in uniform. I wholeheartedly disagree with that. I'm running for president to serve as commander-in-chief, to bring about a change, to end this policy of being the world's police, and actually focus on making sure we have a secure country and bringing our resources back towards serving the people here at home.
But your lawyer says that this is defamatory, asking for a retraction of what she said.
Yes.
If she does not issue a retraction, are you going to sue Hillary Clinton?
I'm going to let the lawyers try to figure out that, but I think the point that I'm raising here is that if Hillary Clinton and her proxies can do this to me, they can do this to anyone who stands up with a dissenting voice, speaking out for peace, speaking out for an end to these interventionist regime change war policies. This is really the big issue that we're facing.
Her point is that she thinks that they're grooming you to run as a third-party candidate. Is there any scenario whatsoever where you would run as a third-party candidate?
No. I've said that over and over for months and months and months. And I think the fact that she, again, and people around her, people in the media, political opponents, they keep bringing this thing up, even though I have said countless times, I will not run as a third-party candidate. I'm running for the Democratic nomination. They're just trying to stoke suspicion and fear in people's minds so that they won't support me. Once again, just trying to undermine my candidacy.
Foreign policy, something you just brought up,
Yes.
a big thing, a big differentiator between you and a lot of the other candidates. On the issue of Russia, what should the U.S. policy towards Russia be?
The number one thing that we've got to do is to de-escalate tensions between the United States and nuclear-armed countries like Russia and China. Nuclear strategists are sounding the alarm bells because of this new Cold War that we are in. Tensions are increasing. Nuclear arms race is ensuing. It is pushing us closer and closer to the brink of nuclear catastrophe, more so than ever before, certainly in our lifetimes. This is a very serious existential threat that exists for every single American. We've got to be able to exercise all the tools of diplomacy to be able to work out our differences with countries like Russia and China, while also pursuing areas of shared and common interest, like setting a goal of reducing the proliferation of these nuclear weapons in the world, addressing climate change, and so many others.
Another area of disagreement is over the issue of Syria and what to do forward there. There have been some that have criticized your meeting with Bashar al-Assad. You've talked about that a lot, saying that you were on a fact-finding mission there. In terms of the policy of Syria going forward, what do you say to critics who are worried about, if you do pull out the troops, that there's going to be a power vacuum and that bad guys are essentially going to fill it?
I would say that those people don't know very much about our foreign policy. The fact is, we have been waging a regime change effort and war in Syria since 2011 using two primary war tactics. Number one, providing aid and arms and equipment and funding to proxy fighters on the ground who are actually terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda and their affiliates and offshoots. They're the most powerful force fighting to overthrow the government. If they'd been successful in overthrowing the government, they would be the ones who would be taking over that country, posing a much more serious threat to the United States. The second tactic has been kind of a modern-day siege of draconian sanctions that have hit the most vulnerable people in Syria the hardest. As president now, I would end this regime change effort and make it so that the Syrian people can determine their own future.
So what exactly does that look like? Does that mean all troops are out of Syria?
That means that if our troops are not engaging in an effort to defeat ISIS and Al-Qaeda, then bring them home.
And that's true in Afghanistan, that's true everywhere, right?
Yes, because if you look at the tactic that's been used, right? We've had these long-term occupations, these regime change wars, this ongoing nation building that's followed. It's cost us as American taxpayers over $6 trillion. We have lost thousands of American soldier service members, their lives in this. And what's the result we've seen? We have seen Al-Qaeda is stronger now than they were when they attacked us on 9/11, the resurgence of ISIS and this growing terrorist threat. So these wars have not actually made us more safe. I would bring our troops back home, keep a close eye on the terrorist threat coming from jihadist groups like Al-Qaeda, use our special forces to get in, defeat that threat, and get out.
And for people that would be worried that like blood would be on your hands of people that may get massacred in the meantime.
Look, the blood of our servicemen and women and the countless people in these countries where we have waged these wars is on the hands who have been proponents of these wars, people like Hillary Clinton and others.
You bring a unique perspective. You and Mayor Pete, the only veterans in the Democratic campaign. President Trump, obviously not a veteran as well. How is actually being a veteran, how has that shaped your view? How do you think you view things differently because of that experience?
Oh, I've been serving now for over 16 years. I started out enlisted as a private, was enlisted for 4 years, went to basic training in South Carolina. My first deployment to Iraq was as a specialist, then went on to OCS and deployed a second time as a platoon leader. But throughout all this time, just being able to serve alongside so many great patriots, understanding really what it means for those few to raise their hands and say, I am willing to lay my life down for our country, and seeing how they are the ones who pay the price for the decisions that are made in Washington.
This week there was this big event at the Coliseum, which you spoke at, honoring veterans there for the first time on Veterans Day. What do you want people to know about veterans that maybe they don't know about veterans, having actually been one?
That it's easy sometimes for politicians especially to give flowery speeches on Veterans Day saying thank you for your service, but that words can be cheap, you know, actions really speak louder than words. And unfortunately right now, too many of our veterans who are being sent off to fight in these wars in service to our country, unfortunately, oftentimes unnecessary wars, when they come home, they're being left behind.
Right, and that leads us to our next issue, which is homelessness. And we've seen so many homeless here in the state of California, and many of them are veterans. It's been an almost intractable problem for us here. If you're president, how can you use the federal government specifically to help the homeless issue?
I mean, look, two things immediately come to mind. Number one is making sure that we have the resources necessary to make sure that every single veteran in this country can have a roof over their heads. There are amazing people who are out there working on the ground every day who's saying, hey, look, there's not enough of these HUD-VASH vouchers that can help a veteran who can't afford a place on their own to be able to make that happen. Number two is making sure that those who are working within our government aren't just sitting behind a desk waiting for someone to come knock at the door, but actually helping deploy these resources through outreach teams and going and finding veterans where they are with the whole toolkit of resources, whether they need housing, whether you need some mental health treatment, whether you need treatment related to substance abuse. There are so many different factors that we need to consider. The bottom line is get the help to our veterans who have served and sacrificed so much.
Perhaps the biggest debate on the debate stage in the Democratic Party has been over the issue of health care.
Yes.
You're a fan of Medicare for All, right?
I've got a plan called Single Payer Plus.
Okay.
And it basically, it's modeled loosely after the healthcare system in Australia, where you have every single American who is enrolled in, it's a Medicare for All type of program. Everyone gets that basic quality health care. However, if you want to buy supplemental private insurance, or if your employer is offering you a great plan, you want to keep that, that's fine. But that does not undermine or take away from every American being able to get the quality health care they need.
So it sounds like everybody is opted in automatically and you can opt out? Is that sort of
You
what it is?
don't have to opt out. Everybody is enrolled in this program. If you want to supplement it or add on to it or whatever, you have the freedom to do so.
So passing that would be tough, right? You've got insurance companies that have hundreds of millions of dollars they could throw at lobbying. Even when the Democratic Party had a supermajority in the Obama administration, they couldn't pass a single payer plan. How are you actually going to pass that?
As I travel across the country, in rural towns in Iowa, even some towns that voted for Donald Trump predominantly, big cities, all different parts of the country, healthcare is the #1 issue on people's minds. And the challenges people are facing don't discriminate between Republicans and Democrats. I hear from people who have children who have diabetes and who cannot afford the insulin that they need to make sure that their child is healthy. The stories are numerous and they are heartrending.
No doubt about that.
And they recognize that the current system is corrupt and broken because it is a for-profit system. So while Washington politicians may be paid off by the big insurance and big pharma lobbyists, we're organizing people to call up to their leaders and say, hey, you need to put our interests first, not allow big insurance and big pharma in the room as we are writing this legislation that will actually ensure quality health care for every American.
So the phone calls, that's basically, do you think that's going to be enough to overcome that?
Oh, no, there's a lot more than phone calls.
Yeah.
Look, people are crying out for help.
Right.
People are literally crying out for help because their lives or the lives of their loved ones depend on it. And they are being deprived of the care they need in the wealthiest nation in the world because of this greedy for-profit system that we have in place. That's why we've got to change this system at its core while also addressing the revolving door and the legal corruption that exists in Washington.
Yeah, and there's no issue more personal to people. So
Exactly.
You're here in California.
Yes.
We love having you in California.
It's great
you get
to
to
be
surf
here
in California, which is
know.
great. We got the California primary earlier than ever, more
Yes.
important than ever. Pretty complicated state with 9 media markets, the most populous state in the country.
Yeah.
Polling shows you doing so-so right now. How do you improve that? How do you win in California?
Continuing to reach out to voters all across the state. I'm using every platform possible, coming on shows like yours, getting out. We're holding town hall meetings and really going directly to voters so that they can hear my message and I can ask for their support.
Of course, nothing more important than coming on this show. So we appreciate you got that
Of
right.
course.
And part of coming on this show is we like to have some fun. So we like to play some games. This is called the name game.
Okay.
You hear a little Beyonce there.
All right.
Okay. So this is one word that comes to mind when you hear these names. Okay. Hopefully we don't get you in trouble. President Donald Trump.
Orange.
Vice President Mike Pence.
Indiana.
President Barack Obama.
Hawaii. Come on.
All right. Vice President Joe Biden.
Beau Biden. I was friends with his son.
Okay. Hillary Clinton.
Warmonger.
Kamala Harris.
Criminal justice.
And finally, Bernie Sanders.
Lovable and grumpy.
Of course, you endorsed Bernie Sanders back in 2016 and was one of his most vocal supporters at the time. All right, another game called Personal Issues. This is where we get to know you a little bit better as a person. First question, favorite way to relax?
Surfing, no question about that.
Favorite TV show?
That's a good question. I don't watch much TV anymore.
Okay, we'll keep moving. Favorite sports team?
Tennessee Titans.
Favorite Disney movie?
Moana, I think that's a Disney movie.
Yes, it is. Favorite book?
Band of Brothers.
Favorite meal?
Mom's cooking.
Me too.
Whatever it is.
Favorite conservative?
Good friend of mine is Trey Gowdy.
Yes, the former congressman from South Carolina.
That's right.
Who led the Benghazi hearings. You and him probably very close with Hillary together.
We disagree on a whole lot of things.
Favorite people.
We disagree on a whole lot of things, but we are good friends.
You also did a workout while you were here in Southern California this week, a CrossFit workout on the sand.
Yeah.
How does sort of working out keep you sane?
It's a great just way to get my energy out, and what we did here especially was really special. We had some Navy SEALs who helped run the workout, and it was challenging. It was good.
It looks tough, but you got to be the most fit candidate that we have.
You know, I really believe in health and making sure we take care of our bodies. It's both physical, mental, and spiritual well-being are important.
I certainly agree with you on that.
Yes.
Thank you so much for taking the time. Another thing we like to do on the show is we like to play music. So we're taking one of your walkout songs, Ain't No Mountain High Enough. Why this song?
It's just one of my favorites. There's not really a big explanation behind it. I like it.
It's a great song.
It's an inspiring song.
Yeah, all right. Well, Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, thank you so much for coming in. We can rock out, as you say, more of the issue is right after this. I mean, how are you not in a good mood when
I know. That's
playing,
what I'm talking about.